6 years ago, I believed something wholeheartedly. I was the happiest man in the world. Kate and I met in college. I was the one who asked her out, and we started dating. We spent delightful times together, visiting different restaurants, watching recommended movies on DVD, and going on drives. After dating for a while, we moved in together. Once we both settled into our jobs, I proposed, and we got married. Life as a married couple was blissful every day. When Kate would answer the phone at home for me, I just adored watching her. For our first wedding anniversary, we wanted it to be unforgettable, so we planned a trip to a nice resort. I took the afternoon off to buy a surprise gift for Kate at a jewelry store. Right after I finished shopping and stepped outside, my phone rang in my bag.
Is this Owen?
It was the police. At that moment, I felt all the blood drain from my face. Could it be that Kate was involved in some incident? The thought crossed my mind. The officer on the phone began to explain calmly and plainly.
There was a fire in a building full of restaurants near the station. It seems your wife was in a store next to the source of the fire, discussing business.
Cardboard boxes in the corridor caught fire quickly. Although the flames did not reach the store Kate was visiting, it was swiftly engulfed in black smoke, and she was taken to the emergency hospital unconscious.
Okay. I understand. I'll be there right away.
My head was spinning with panic, barely grasping the situation, but I managed to hail a taxi and rush to the hospital where Kate was taken. The 30 minutes it took to get to the hospital felt like hours. My heart raced. Please, please be safe. However, my prayers were in vain. When I arrived, the sight that greeted me was Kate, already covered with a white sheet. The attending doctor was trying to explain something, but I couldn't comprehend a word. I just sat down, utterly drained, my mind a blank. After the first week following her death, I returned to work, merely going through the motions each day. That was all I could manage. Colleagues tried to cheer me up by inviting me out, but I had no interest in going. I couldn't accept the reality. Then, after marking 5 years since her passing, one day, Linda from my department announced she was taking maternity leave and parental leave. During her absence, a temp from an agency would fill in. The following Monday morning, Jan, the temp, was introduced at the morning meeting. I'll be working with you for the next 6 months. The director looked my way and motioned. Owen, come here for a moment, he explained to Jen. For now, Owen will teach you all the basics of the job. I couldn't take my eyes off Jen. My heart was pounding. Trying to maintain my composure, I merely said, "My name is Owen, nice to meet you." But I probably stared at her. She was the spitting image of my late wife, Kate. It was as if she had been reborn.
This is tough. I'm supposed to be your trainer.
Jan, what is your level of computer skills? When I asked, she smiled briefly and looked me in the eyes, saying, I have a good grasp of the basics. Kate always smiled first when she was confident in her answer. That evening, as I glanced over at her typing away, our eyes met. Startled, I tried to look away, but she quickly stood up and hurried over to me. With a smile, she offered me a candy, saying, Here you go, Owen. You look tired. It's good to have some glucose when you're feeling worn out. I remembered Kate used to say the same thing when I brought work home. And then, I realized I was searching for Kate in her.
Owen isn't inapproachable, but sometimes he looks so sad, almost in pain. I wonder if it's just my imagination. He explains work-related questions in detail, but he almost never talks about his family. What bothers me most is that I've never seen Owen smile. Perhaps he's been through something tough. We shouldn't pry into others' private lives, but a life without smiles must be so painful.
A month later, I came to the office early to finish the materials for a joint presentation with 3 companies scheduled for the next day. The department was abuzz. Is something wrong? I asked. That's when I learned of the crisis. Due to a lightning strike the previous night, most of the company's computers were malfunctioning. Even my desktop wouldn't power on. The materials for tomorrow's presentation were strictly confidential, and backups to external media like USBs were not permitted.
Man, this is a mess. But I have to recreate the documents today, no matter what.
The flustered director asked, "Do we have any computers available right now? I'll redo everything myself," and I resolved to handle it. Since Jen arrived a bit before the start of the workday, I decided to have her help with gathering data. Before we knew it, it was 6 p.m. and time to close up. "I'll finish this up," I told her, but she smiled briefly and said, "No, I'll stay too. There's still work I can do, isn't there?" "No, Jen, this won't be done until after midnight, so you should go home. Staying longer would violate your temp agency's contract." She muttered, "Oh, right," then said, "Understood. I'll take my leave," and punched out her time card. However, an hour later, she came back. "Didn't you go home?" I asked, surprised. She smiled and said, "Two people can finish faster." "Oh, and consider this volunteering, so it's not under the temp contract. Let's have something to eat first. You can fight on an empty stomach," she said, laying out the takeout food on the desk. "Thank you. But really, you should go home after we eat. You might miss the last train." I tried to persuade her, but she was stubborn. Once she made up her mind, she wouldn't back down. She even resembled her in that. Even in such moments, I found myself seeing my wife in her. "Owen, do you want to include a graph in this section describing the strength?" "Yes. It should include a graph from an experiment on metal strength conducted in Europe. I'll look it up later." While I thought about compiling some domestic data, she said, "No, it's fine. I'll handle it. I understand French," and smiled again. Her skills were impressive. She found and translated articles from international sites on metal experiments I hadn't even noticed. By 4 a.m., the documents were finally complete, 3 hours ahead of my estimate, thanks to Jen. She brewed 2 cups of coffee and said with a smile, "I'm glad we finished." Then, suddenly, I decided to ask something that had been on my mind.
Jen, this is a photo of my wife on my phone. Do you happen to know her? I asked, showing her the saved picture of Kate.
She looked surprised for a moment, but quickly turned sad, her eyes welling up with tears as she said,
"I know. I knew her well. You were Kate's husband, weren't you?"
"Were you close to Kate? Were you friends? It's our first time meeting, right?" When I asked, she began to speak softly.
"Kate and I were cousins and childhood friends. We spent every day together until I graduated from middle school. But then, my family moved to the UK because of my father's job transfer. We all returned 2 years ago when my father was transferred back to the head office. That's why I couldn't attend Kate's wedding or her funeral."
As she spoke, her tears flowed even more.
"After coming back to the US, I wanted at least to pay respects. So I looked up the address on the letter that announced her marriage, but she had already moved.
In my haste, I apologized.
I'm sorry you came all this way. I'm really sorry."
As I bowed, she suddenly chuckled through her tears.
"Owen, you are just as Kate described you."
Her words piqued my curiosity about how Kate had spoken of me. In her stories, whenever Kate talked on the phone, I was always the topic, always bragging that I was the most sincere and kindest man in the world. She told me this with a nostalgic smile. And then, while listening to her, I naturally smiled. "Oh, Owen, I've seen your smile for the first time. I thought you never smiled, so I'm relieved." Her sudden comment startled me. I realized that in the 5 years since Kate's passing, I hadn't smiled at all. I must have been causing concern around me. My smile had been absent for so long. I felt truly sorry for her. "Jen, if you're available, would you come and see her photos next Sunday?" When I asked, she eagerly replied several times, "I'll come. I will definitely come." Perhaps it was the excitement after the all-nighter, but we ended up chatting for a long time. Worried about that day's presentation, we soon left the office. The triple company presentation was a great success. Jen, who had studied abroad, showcased her French skills, gathering information from European countries. The materials she translated clearly were very well received. The director was all smiles throughout. Several days passed, and on the promised Sunday, she came to my place. I made a type of black tea called Orange Pico, which Kate had liked. She noticed immediately and said with a smile after taking a sip, "This is the Orange Pico that Kate and I liked, isn't it?" Then, turning serious, she looked at me and began,
"Owen, in the month I've been at this job. Until the day we stayed up all night making the presentation materials, I had never seen you truly smile. These 5 years must have been so hard and sad for you. But shouldn't it end now? Kate would be the most worried and pained to see you without the smile. Now,
I felt like I had been struck by a hammer. Her words woke me up. What would Kate think if she saw me emotionless? Being a warrior, she might still be concerned about me, not yet at peace in heaven.
as I sat quietly contemplating, she apologized, looking down. I'm sorry. That was presumptuous of me to say. No, you're right. I can keep worrying Kate forever. I must have worried you over this last month as well. I'm truly sorry.
I apologized to her. She smiled and said, "No, thank you for realizing, and thank you for letting me meet Kate today. She's candid and caring, kind just like Kate." I thought perhaps it was Kate who had arranged for her to come to our company. Afterward, she frequently visited our home, offering beautiful flowers and delicious sweets. And I started going out with her for movies and meals. Recently, I've even come to cherish her slightly stronger will and the way she accidentally slips into French when she's angry. Today marks the anniversary of Kate's passing. For 5 years, I visited her grave alone, but today I came with her. She cleaned Kate's grave slowly, carefully, and lovingly.
Kate, I think I've worried you a lot since you passed away. I'm sorry, but I have something to tell you today. I'm going to be happy with her. And every year, on your anniversary, we'll come here to tell you how well we're doing. So, don't worry anymore.
As I spoke these words in front of the grave, she laughed through her tears and spoke to the grave. "Kate, Owen is kind of funny, isn't he?" As I wondered if I had said something odd, she said, "Proposing in front of a grave. Well, it's okay. Kate is our witness to the proposal, after all." We looked at each other and laughed. Then we stood side by side and prayed together. "We won't worry Kate anymore. I will definitely be happy." As we made this vow, I felt as if Kate was smiling in front of us.